My upstairs neighbors left the water running in their bathroom, causing a lot of damage to mine. So I had to have my landlord's handyman come over. While I was working, a friend called me to let me know that an acquaintance from college had just died. We were all in our early 20s at the time, so this was really strange. The parents said it was natural causes. I was shocked. I had thought I might become friends with him but hadn't seen him enough. And now this. I remember thinking about how short life can be, but I didn't really know him well. The handyman showed up and started working. I offered him some coffee and he accepted. 10 minutes later, I handed him the mug and we chatted a bit. I had met him before, so we had a bit of a connection. He said, "You'll never believe what happened to me this week," and told me a story about how residents at another building he managed were complaining about a smell. After a week of no activity, he entered the apartment on behalf of the landlord. He found a body. A young man, my age, same race as my acquaintance who had just died. The body had a pipe next to it. The last time I saw the person who passed away was at a party where we had a conversation and realized we had the same landlord. I remember thinking it was a small world. And now, I know the building they lived in is on the same street where the handyman was working on my bathroom ceiling. It's almost certain that the handyman who fixed my ceiling found their body. He told me about it just a couple of hours after I found out from someone else. This wasn't in a small town. It was in Brooklyn, so the coincidence is really strange and crazy. The last time I saw the person who passed away was at that party where we discovered we had the same landlord. I'm not sure if the pipe in my bathroom had anything to do with their death, but the family said it was natural causes. That pipe has been one of the few secrets I've kept in my life. I'm still trying to wrap my head around the whole thing. Story 2. I'm a vet, and I want to tell you about a case I saw when I was still a new graduate, doing an internship. There was an 18-month-old male Dalmatian living with a female dog in a show home. The dog was healthy until the female dog went into heat, and then his back leg suddenly became paralyzed. But as soon as the female dog was no longer in heat, he was back to normal. When we examined him, we couldn't find anything wrong. So we decided to test him by exposing him to another female dog in heat. And sure enough, his back legs became paralyzed again within minutes. The exam showed a problem in his lower spine. We took the female dog away, and he was back to normal within a couple of hours. We took a special X-ray of his spine with contrast, and we found a small mass in the exact spot where the problem was happening. But surprisingly, the mass was too small to be causing such big symptoms. We were puzzled, but the owner was adamant that we should operate. So we removed the mass, and amazingly, the dog was totally cured after that. We were all relieved and curious, so we sent the mass to the lab to figure out what it was. The answer was shocking. It was a congenital abnormality, meaning the dog was born with it. It was a piece of tissue from the penis that had formed inside the spinal canal, which is a very unusual place for it to be. Essentially, the dog was getting erections inside his spinal canal, which was putting pressure on his spinal cord and causing the paralysis in his back legs. But when the stimulation stopped, the paralysis went away too. It was one of the strangest and most fascinating cases I've ever seen in my career as a vet. I'll never forget it. Story 3. When I was a kid, I was with my 2 friends, and we were walking around, exploring different neighborhoods. We were bored and looking for something to do. At that time, the city I lived in was safe, so our parents allowed us to roam free as long as we were back home before dark. Anyway, one day we decided to go bird hunting. As we walked past a house, we saw 5 or 6 gas cylinders lying on the street. We picked one up, thinking it was okay since it was just lying there. But as we were leaving, an old man came out of the house, yelling at us to put the cylinder back. We started running, and he jumped on his bicycle and chased us. I told my friend to drop the cylinder, and he did, but the old man kept following us, threatening to beat us up. We were really scared. He chased us for about 10 minutes until we reached our neighborhood. My friends quickly ran into their houses before the old man could see where they lived. I had to run a bit farther to get to my house, and just as I was opening the door, the old man saw me going inside. I knew I was in trouble. I ran to my room to hide, but I heard someone knocking on the door. My father went to see who it was, and it was the old man. The old man told my dad that we stole the gas cylinders from inside his house and disrespected him with bad language. He wanted my dad to be angry with me. I tried to explain to my dad what really happened. That we found the cylinders on the street and didn't say any bad words to the old man. But my dad believed the old man's story instead of mine. So I had to apologize to the old man, which was unfair. I also had to tell my dad where my friends lived, which they didn't like because they got in trouble with their parents too. As a result, I was grounded for a whole month. Here's a quick summary. We picked up a gas cylinder from the street. An old man got angry and chased us. I made it home, but he saw where I lived and lied to my dad, saying I stole the cylinder from his house and disrespected him. I got in trouble, had to tell on my friends, and was grounded for a month. Even though it's been a while, I still see the old man sometimes, and every time I feel like telling him what I really think, that he's a liar and a bully, and I wish I could use the gas cylinder to show him how I feel. Story 4. Here's my story from an older thread. Okay, so my two friends and I decided to take acid together. We each took 2 hits. For one of my friends and me, this was our first time taking more than 1 tab. So we took the acid, went for a walk, and did some typical things people do when they're tripping. So 4 hours into our trip, we were back at my friend's apartment. I had left my jacket in another friend's car the day before, and he had kindly offered to drop it off at our place. He called me when he arrived and said, "Hey, I'm here." But there are a bunch of police cars outside your apartment. I looked out the window and saw 3 cop cars parked on the street. I felt okay enough to go outside and grab my jacket from my friend. It seemed like an easy task, right? Wrong. I opened the apartment door, walked down the stairs, and opened the front door to the apartment complex, which was solid, not see-through. As soon as I opened it, I was surprised by a drunk guy and 4 police officers. The drunk guy grabbed me lightly and asked, "Hey man, got any money?" One of the officers put his hand on my shoulder and asked, "Do you know this guy?" I quickly replied, no, pushed his hand off, and walked past them. At that point, I was thinking, what on earth is happening? I walked out to the street and saw all the officers rushing into the apartment building. I grabbed my jacket from my friend and said thanks. I still had no idea what was going on, but I didn't want to go back in through the front door. So I decided to try the back door. I walked around the entire complex, up the back stairs, and opened the door to my friend's place. As soon as I walked in, my 2 friends, who were also tripping, started screaming at me. "What the hell is going on? Magic Flight, what did you do?" They were totally freaking out. From here, the story switches to my friend's perspective. After I left the apartment earlier, the drunk guy walked up the stairs and opened the front door to my friend's place. My friends, who were still heavily tripping, thought he was my friend dropping off the jacket. They didn't know him. The drunk guy walked in and approached my friends, who stood up to shake hands with him, thinking he was my friend. But then the drunk guy asked, "Hey, can I borrow $30? My friends quickly realized this wasn't my friend, just some random drunk guy who walked into their apartment. They looked towards the door and saw all the police officers standing there, staring into the apartment. Keep in mind, there were 2 bongs, an oil rig, jars of weed. My friend was growing it at the time, speed, Xanax, acid, and Molly, all out in the open on my friend's coffee table, visible from the doorway. My friends quickly got the drunk guy out of the apartment, and one of my friends asked the officers, "What's going on? Does he need help?" But the officers were just as clueless as the drunk guy. They apologized, and then one of them said, "We've got him, but maybe you guys should come with us too," trying to be funny, but it wasn't. They closed and locked the door. That's when I walked in through the back door, totally unaware of what had just happened. We watched the officers talk to the drunk guy for another 45 minutes before they finally let him go. We still had no idea what had happened. I know this story might not sound that wild, but trust me, it was really intense and overwhelming when I was tripping on acid for the first time. We continued to trip and had a good time, but it was definitely a crazy experience, and it makes for a great story to tell at parties. Short version, I took acid, a drunk guy burst into our apartment, asked for $30, and we barely avoided getting arrested. What a night.